Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Scruffy Movies podcast. I'm Zach Wallace.
And I'm John Crocker.
And I shouldn't just say another edition because this is a celebratory episode. We have reached our 50th episode.
Woo-woo!
That's crazy. It doesn't feel like you and I have had, and not even counting like outside, 50 hours of continuous conversation.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think about.
It's crazy. But as you know, if you've listened at all to our podcast before, the two things Crocker and I connect on the most, two things that we are the biggest fans of, are the Marvel movies and the Star Wars movies. So today, while we are both big fans of that, Crocker and I may know a little bit more collectively about Star Wars than Marvel. So what we're going to do is a fun kind of quick pitch, improv movie pitch episode where I've written down three characters, three locations, and three objects within the Star Wars universe. Crocker is going to randomly give me numbers from each selection, and I will be choosing a random one. This is the first time he's heard it, and I will give him the three connections, to which he will then have to pitch me a new Star Wars movie to go along with those three things. And then same for him. I've never seen his. He's going to give me three, and I'm going to have to pitch three. I'm going to have to pitch a Star Wars movie based off of those three. And then at the end, we're going to have kind of a fun Marvel Star Wars mashup where we'll both work on it together. So I don't know who wants to go first. Anything else you need to say about our celebratory episode before we hop in?
Nah, we appreciate all the longtime listeners and the interactions and everything so far. Now, I do want to just confirm with you, so three people, I have them listed 1, 2, 3. And if you say two, I give you the middle one. That's how we're doing this.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, dude, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm excited to see what we come up with here. I'm a little nervous about this one. Usually I know exactly what I'm talking about before we get in these things.
Well, how about then you go first and we'll work through everything kind of together, like figuring stuff out. I'll leave it up to you, but we can like work together a little bit.
All right. So you just want me to start giving numbers?
So character.
2.
Darth Maul. Location.
Ooh, that one treated me well. I'm going to go with 2 again.
The Forest Moon of Endor.
Dude, that was almost one of mine.
And finally, object.
You know what? Let's keep it on a roll. Let's go with 2 again.
Imperial Security Droid, which is K2SO from Rogue One.
K2, okay.
So your character is Darth Maul. He is on the Forest Moon of Endor doing something that relates to an Imperial security droid.
Okay, now the Forest Moon of Endor, was that where the Death Star 1 or the Death Star 2 went down?
Death Star 2. That was in Return of the Jedi where all the Ewoks live, is Forest Moon of Endor.
Okay. So Darth Maul's time in movie canon would be before the events of that.
Correct. But as we've seen from Star Wars, the Clone Wars television series, and from Solo, Darth Maul survived being cut in half in episode 1.
Right.
So if you want to push it closer to those dates, we'll see how crazy you get with it.
Okay. Well, I think that the first thing I have to do is have Darth Maul and K2SO actually working together.
So just straight up, just K2SO, like that is the Imperial security droid you're going with?
No, not him. Not necessarily, but a similar Imperial droid that's working with Darth Maul. Because if we're going to have a standalone Darth Maul movie, every good Star Wars movie has a buddy droid. So I want the Imperial droid to be his buddy droid.
Okay, and this Imperial droid, K2SO in Rogue One, was a captured Imperial droid that then worked for the Rebel Alliance.
Right.
Is this one going to be Rebel or Empire? Because we've seen Darth Maul work for the Empire before in Episode 1, but then when we see him in Solo, he has gone outside of those bounds, and he is working, doing, like, his own thing.
Now, I want like Darth Maul Prime, back when the Empire was in full strength, and it would make sense that in the events of Episode 1, they would say, here's an Imperial droid to be your droid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we may have to swing it kind of like that. This is a like a prototype, because I think that the most like in-depth droids that they had back in those days were just like those what, like the battle droids, like that was the extent of the army. was those like, come on, commander, beep beep.
Yeah, but they had like just regular like day-to-day kind of protocol droids, I mean, all your C3PO, R2D2 style droids were all around by then.
Yeah, that's true. So this could be like an Imperial security droid build, but not necessarily like an Imperial security droid yet. What if this was just a regular like robot? Like this was just it was meant to be like a bodyguard or something of sorts, and then because of this mission with Darth Maul, it ends up becoming like the build for the Imperial security droids.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So at this time, we have the forest moon of Endor, where we know it's where the Ewoks live, and nothing's really happened there at this point, right? If we're going with a bit earlier in the story. So
I have never seen the Ewok Adventures movie, so I cannot speak to that.
me either.
But
I forgot those existed.
I don't think those are prequels anyway.
So let's think about this then. What would Darth Maul and his droid be doing on the forest moon of Endor? Potentially scouting for the future missions.
Yeah.
I like that. So that's why he's there. Then that at least gives him the purpose, that sets the scene. That's why he's there. Now, what happens when he actually gets there? I think the easy answer is he attempts to slaughter all of the Ewoks, and they somehow outnumber him like a horde of Ewoks and take him down.
So you're making just a straight up like Darth Maul versus Ewoks movie.
Well, I want there to be at least another like good hero or good Jedi in there. Perhaps who had relations with the Ewoks going into that movie? Did Obi-Wan, did he like reference them as having met with it, like known them before or anything like that? I wonder.
Not that I can pull off the top of my head, but I mean, I'm sure that there's people out there who knew of the Ewoks, you know what I mean? Because they were pretty smart. They didn't have like advanced weaponry or anything, but they were able to, after the initial capturing, be able to be like, okay, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, we'll help you.
Well, so kind of what I'm thinking is that I'm thinking Qui-Gon, because he doesn't get enough love. And if Qui-Gon and Darth Maul meet before the Duel of Fates, then, like previous to that, it would give a little bit more oomph for why so much passion and hatred when we actually see that fight later on screen in episode 1.
Yeah, because they like never talk to each other. They just like the door opens and Darth Maul is there and they start fighting. But that would explain like all of the craziness that goes down and bring like a little bit more emphasis to everything.
And it'll give a little bit of extra padding on Qui-Gon's story, because unless you've read the books, you really don't know a whole heck of a lot about him.
We have not gotten enough Qui-Gon Jinn.
Not at all. So maybe he was a friend of the Ewoks, and that is why the Ewoks knew who the Jedi were and knew that they could trust them and whatnot when we see him later on. So ultimately, I want a big fight to happen on the Forest Moon of Endor between Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul. But the story, I want it to be Darth Maul's story. I want to see like more behind the scenes of Darth Maul, because we don't really get a whole lot from him. I mean, I think he says like 9 words for the entirety of episode 1. So a little bit of backstory, a little bit of buddy comedy, buddy drama with the Imperial droid that may very well do so well in this battle that it becomes the go-to design moving forward. Ultimately, we cannot have either Darth Maul or Qui-Gon die, right? They can't beat each other. They can't chop limbs off, because then we would have known about it by the time episode 1 rolls around. But I want it to be a big enough fight that they definitely hate each other's guts and want to fight each other again, like we mentioned, to give more oomph to how we see them interacting later on. And I think the best way to do that would be to have the Ewoks actually intervene somehow and stop the fight early, separate the two from one another, do their like ropes and sticks and stones stuff to get the two apart, at which point they may not find each other again, or at that point, sort of something's over with, other part of the story that will then lead it on into the events of episode 1.
It would be interesting, maybe like halfway through or something like that. Qui-Gon Jinn for the whole time has been like, I'm a Jedi. I can take one Sith's apprentice and a beta test Imperial droid, not a problem. But then he loses his lightsaber somehow. Who knows?
Or he just realizes that Darth Maul could be one of the greatest duelists of all time.
Right.
Might actually not be as well prepared for that fight. He might have gone in with a little too much confidence.
Yeah, maybe, and maybe that's it, because we are presented with a Qui-Gon Jinn in episode 1 that's very much the, like, I understand what's going on. You have to trust me. Like, I'm not all smart. Like, not this. That might also be a little more fuel to the fire of him to find the one, which even in episode 1, we see the Jedi Council questioning Anakin. They're like, we don't think that this kid is the one. There's a great darkness within him, and we don't want him on this council. But Qui-Gon Jinn's like, no, I'm going to train him anyway. And this might be a little bit more fuel for the fire, because he's the only one that truly knows what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, Qui-Gon was always the one, at least in my recollection, where he was like, it's more of a code than a set of rules. Like, it's not always a bad thing to fight or to make decisions based off of, your gut instinct, as opposed to, the Force or the Jedi Code or anything like that. So it would make sense that a lot of those thoughts were formed from his earlier experiences, and this could be one of those experiences that was really pivotal in that.
Yeah, he could have gone into this being like full force. I know the rules. The rules are what makes a Jedi strong. And then through the course of this movie, he realizes that's when he starts to realize, well, maybe it's not. It's more of a guide instead of a direct rule book, because I almost got my ass handed to me going in there trying to follow just like strict rules.
Yeah. And again, it depends on sort of what you believe as far as canon and legends and everything else. But this could also be the first time the Jedi see, at least in a very, very long time, the double-bladed lightsaber, which could really, I mean, if you've only practiced, because there are 7 distinct fighting styles of lightsaber, and if you've practiced, a couple of those and gotten very good at it, they may not teach parries against double-edged swords and that kind of stuff. So he could realize that the code is not quite as strong, and that the modus operandi, it would not necessarily hold up with the new order that's coming about.
Well, see, if we're going so deep into rules and guides and stuff, I almost want this to be kind of like almost like a Predator movie set in the jungle, which is like, there's this extremely powerful army man who is Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Predator movie, but then he's stripped of all of his weapons. Like, he has nothing. How is he going to fight back? And it ends up being his mind that he has to use to fight back, instead of these weapons that he's grown so accustomed to, which is why I'm more of a fan of Qui-Gon losing his lightsaber, and he like barely makes it out alive. And then it's like, we can really dive deep into, when a Jedi has nothing else, what else do they still have? Like,
the Force.
Yeah, exactly. And he like starts channeling the Force and like figuring things out through the Force. Who knows? But it needs to be something like he gets like so worn down that he's unable to draw like enough Force power, because I don't want him to just be like Darth Maul's running up through the jungle at him. He's just like, oh, no problem, and just like flicks him away.
Yeah, well, I don't think we've seen Qui-Gon. God, I really need to go back and rewatch episode 1. but he was never one to like do a lot of force pushes. And like, I think he pushed over some battle bots, like those little roly bots and whatnot,
Yeah.
but there's a difference in like what I would call that type of force offensive tactics and then like catching a blaster bolt, which would be like really, really strong use of the force, just pure force. And I would put that like almost at lightning out of your fingertips level. And I don't think that Qui-Gon was quite there, but that's why using his brain and actually working with the Ewoks comes into play. Because if he's unarmed, then he could use actual battle tactics, which would be more of more of an Obi-Wan thing. But actually being a general and using men on the ground, boots on the ground, even though they may only be armed with sticks and stones and vines, to actually fend off Darth Maul.
And the Forest Moon of Endor is the perfect place to get all those rudimentary weapons because that's all the Ewoks have.
That's exactly right. That's all they were using in episode 2.
In episode 2?
2. Was it 3? 3. Episode 3.
What? They were in episode 3?
Oh, the third one. The third original.
Episode 6.
That's the one. With all the Force Ghosts at the end of the movie. I know what I'm talking about. For some reason, I think of the originals as 1, 2, and 3 in my brain occasionally.
I was very confused for a minute. But yeah, I think that would be interesting. We've never seen really a Jedi just like absolutely stripped of power and weaponry to the point where it's like, what am I going to do now? And then him having to team up with the Ewoks and do some kind of like rudimentary battle plan to stop these two like incredibly strong beings that he's never seen before, I think would be actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like envisioning the Dark Knight and like the hole in the ground scene, where it's like Qui-Gon is stripped of everything and only has his willpower, and you get a bit of like that horror element to it, but you also have that with the Predator-esque, sort of scene that we're setting, and Darth Maul is just, he can go as dark as you need him to be at any point in time, so he would slip right into that. So I'm seeing this not necessarily being like well, brilliant's the word I want to use, but brilliant in terms of like colors. Like it's not going to be a bright movie, but it's not going to, like, it won't be like Rogue One where it's still a gritty war movie, but it's on a freaking Caribbean island. Like That's not what I'm picturing at all. I'm picturing like a rainy, dark, like no bright colors. Like the use of the color in a lightsaber would be like the most brilliant thing on the screen type of a deal. Everybody's in woodland camo, furry creatures. I want like a dark, gritty, grimy movie that's really even like God, what's the Russian sniper movie where it's Enemy at the Gates, where it's one versus the other, and it's just like these two individuals throwing lobs at each other the whole time, and the whole movie is truly just a cat and mouse battle movie between the two.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking like the end shot of the trailer is you see like it kind of takes you through a little bit of the story of Qui-Gon's broken down, Darth Maul's here, and then you see Qui-Gon running through the woods, and then he hears like something behind him, and he just stops, and you hear him like looking around, and it's like it's raining and everything, and he's just like looking around, and then you just see like you don't see Darth Maul, you just see the blade of the lightsaber come out, and then he starts to run again, and as he's running you can see in the trees like only the light of the lightsaber like going through the trees, and then it like lightning strikes, and as lightning strikes you see Darth Maul like jumping down from the trees towards him, and then it cuts and it says Obi-Wan, a Star Wars story, or whatever it is.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah, Qui-Gon, a Star Wars story. I said Obi-Wan.
I like that, and it would be unmistakable that it would be Maul's lightsaber because it would be double-edged, obviously spinning around, one fulcrum. So it would be, even without having to see Darth Maul, just like in the rain and the dark and seeing the lightsaber come on, and then the other end, and then it spins, like, there's only one person in the entirety of the Star Wars universe that uses a double-edged red lightsaber. At least I believe, unless Savage Opress uses red as well, his brother or whoever that is to Darth Maul.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So it would be really cool if this almost like is just presented as like a Qui-Gon Jinn learning his basics story, And it's not even teased until the very end that Darth Maul is what's hunting him through the forest.
God, I like it. I like it a lot.
That's pretty cool. So we ended up transitioning it more from a Darth Maul movie to a Qui-Gon Jinn movie, but Darth Maul is still like I want it to be like super small cast too. I don't think we need a lot of like setup or anything. I want it to just be like maybe one scene Qui-Gon, one scene Darth Maul, and then it's just like the Predator movie. It's just them in the camp.
Yep, I like it. And I would like a few of those scenes too, like you get in God, what was the Mars movie that the Pretty Boy did where they left him on Mars?
The Martian, Matt Damon.
The Martian, that Matt Damon, where there were quite a few scenes in that movie where it was just like him by himself actually having to solve problems. Like problem solving was a big part of that movie, and I would like to see that for Qui-Gon in this movie, where it's just him in the desert looking at what he has on his person and what's around him and what he can do with the Force and maybe what the Ewoks bring to the table, and then that's all you get.
Yeah, that's cool. So it's almost like it's a Predator movie, but we know who the people are, and it's like taking place in the Star Wars universe. That's pretty cool. That seems like a good idea. I would watch that in an instant.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to going deeper on, still getting to know Darth Maul more. Definitely, obviously, getting to know the ins and outs of Qui-Gon, but shine a light on Darth Maul a little bit too, because he's really the only other person there, and I think you could explore two characters that really have not gotten what they deserve, the love that they deserve, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it's just called Undo a Star Wars Story.
We call it 0.5, episode 0.5.
Star Wars 0.5, the Predator Menace.
The Predator Menace. I like it.
That was pretty good. That was a pretty good. See, and you were worried about hopping in here. Now I'm worried that my pitch isn't going to be as good as that one.
Well, I've got a few softballs in here for you. It just depends on what numbers you pick.
Okay. All right. I'm ready. I'm ready for my pitch. So what column first?
We'll do the same. People.
3.
Boss Nass, leader of the Gungans.
Oh my God. Great. Okay. What's the next place?
Places.
2.
Mos Eisley Cantina.
Okay.
So we're familiar with that one on Tatooine, where Han definitely did not shoot first.
Han definitely did shoot first. 100% shot first, and then they re-edited it to make him look more like a hero.
He is a hero.
He is a rebel.
And then the item.
I'll keep the countdown going. 1.
Boba Fett's jetpack.
Oh my God. What even is this movie gonna be?
So you've got Boss Nass, the leader of the Gungans, who I just love because of the way he talks. And then Boba Fett's jetpack.
Okay, well, I'll start with the obvious connection. It kind of makes sense that Boba Fett's jetpack would be in the Mos Eisley Cantina, because that is a bar for scoundrels and not so nice people. Right. So
a hive of, or a wretched hive of villainy, scum and villainy, I believe is what Obi-Wan called it.
Well, see, and now here's the thing. We know that I'm going to use this movie to prove that Boba Fett is alive in the greater universe, because I'm going to have, let's see, the Gungans, really the last time we see any of the Gungans besides Jar Jar Binks is like episode 1. That's the last time we really explore any Gungan stuff. We're pulling a lot of like episode 1 content today.
Yep, we are.
So, I mean, I know Boss Nass kind of speaks funny and stuff, and the Gungans were made more to be like, oh, look, funny creatures for the kids to enjoy. But at the end of the day, in canon, Boss Nass is a leader of an entire people. So Correct. He's not one to just kind of kowtow to superiority or bow down to people trying to unnerve him or threaten his people, as we can see in episode 1 when the Gungans show up to help the fight.
Yep, he's pretty stern. I mean, and he is a stern individual.
So let's do a little Gungan history here. Let's say that after episode 1, the Gungans return to their home. They live there quietly for a long time. And then, for reasons unknown currently, Boba Fett comes to the Gungans, which I also think could be a cool scene because that would be Boba Fett underwater, which is an element we've never seen him in before, and I want to see what kind of weaponry he would bring to battle underwater.
Perhaps he has some type of thing in his jetpack.
Right. He has a underwater breathing apparatus.
There you go.
Jetpack. So let's say Boba Fett comes down and he has been hired to deliver a message, more or less, and it's saying that the water is no longer the Gungans. It's no longer the Gungan property because somebody up above the water has claimed it to be their own. And if the Gungans don't vacate, then Boba Fett has been hired to take them out. So he delivers a message first, and the message is to Boss Nass, and it says, basically, leave or you're dead. And Boss Nass, of course, being the stern individual as he is, says, no, we're not going to leave. We're the Gungans, and we belong here. Yes.
I was waiting for you to do
it. And so then Boba Fett, he shoots Boss Nass's wife, or whatever the equivalent of a wife is in Gungans.
Ooh, so, starting with just straight up assassination.
He basically just turns and shoots her, and Boss Nass runs to take him down or whatever, and Boba Fett basically more or less is like, there's nothing you can do that I couldn't stop you from doing. So do whatever you think you have to do, but believe me, for every punch you try and land on me is another person that I will kill. And so Boss Nass tries to fight him a little bit, and during the fight, because this would be a cool scene too, because we also, much like Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn, never really get to explore Boba Fett that much. So let's have Boss Nass is coming at him running with punches and weaponry. And not only is Boba Fett deflecting his punches and stuff, at the same time he's deflecting punches, he's shooting Gungans, which is only making Boss Nass more mad, keeps charging at him. The angrier he gets, the more punches he throws, the more Boba Fett deflects and shoots other people. So he's not even using his full focus on just the Boss Nass fight. He doesn't have to, and he wants to prove that to Boss Nass. So basically it ends with Boss Nass dropping to his knees, and he's like, please, I'm sorry that we ever tried to disobey. Please, I have this 3 or 4 Gungans left. We will leave. The water territory is yours. And Boba Fett says something along the lines of, was that so hard? And then flies away. He's done. He's completed his mission. He didn't want to kill anybody, but he had to, and he doesn't really care that much about having to do it. So he flies away. Boss Nass takes the remaining Gungans and goes up to Earth, up to, I'm not sure what planet they were on. He goes topside, and basically now they are homeless. They've been living in the water for who knows how long. They're homeless. They're destitute. They have no place. Boss Nass is only considered a king because he had a kingdom. He doesn't have a kingdom anymore. Why should they consider him a king? They become homeless street urchins mostly. Boss Nass continues to try and provide for these remaining Gungans, but it's not looking good. People don't look good on Gungans anymore because Jar Jar Binks basically put the Empire into power. So all of these Gungans that were able to hide underwater in just their Gungan territory are now having to live with people who hate them. Every time a new Empire rule comes out, the people take it out on these homeless Gungans because they are the ones, Jar Jar Binks, who gave the Empire this power. So the Gungans aren't doing very well.
Naboo,
Thank you. The Gungans aren't doing very well. Eventually, Boss Nass gets word, and I don't want it to be somebody telling him in person. I want it to be almost like two other bounty hunters talking about, did you hear that Boba Fett could be out? I've heard that people were spotting him on Tatooine, which would also make sense for him going to Tatooine because the last people he saw and the people he most definitely wants to get revenge on are Luke and Leia. This takes place, let's say this takes place in between episode 6 and 7 at an unknown time during some of the time between that. So Boss Nass hears this. He tries to rally the remaining people of his kingdom, and he's like, listen, this is our chance. We didn't know that Boba Fett died because how could they? But we've heard word that he's here. Let's go get him. And so they go. Only Boss Nass goes. His kingdom is basically like, we've let you continue on this illusion of leading us for far too long. You're not our leader, and you haven't been since you lost our kingdom. Something along those lines, like, really hurts him. So he goes by himself to try and prove that he can take down Boba Fett. He's had so much anger and rage building up inside of him all these years. He knows that he can do it by himself if it comes down to it, because all of this power will take over him and he will be able to do it. He goes to the Mos Eisley Cantina. He starts asking around, and he gets a tip that Boba Fett isn't there, or he overhears maybe like a room number or something. Boba Fett staying in this room, this wherever. He goes there and he finds Boba Fett's jetpack. He does not find Boba Fett, however. So he decides to wait it out. He's going to wait for Boba Fett to come back, but he never does. So then it becomes Boss Nass taking this jetpack basically and trying to figure out where Boba Fett is or what he's currently doing. And I want it to be like Boba Fett is purposefully not wearing Mandalorian armor, because then people would be like, oh, look, Boba Fett. And he's already had people start to talk about him, which is how Boss Nass found out about it. And he doesn't want that to happen because he doesn't want Luke, Leia, Han, Lando to know he's alive, because he wants to murder them. So he has stopped wearing his Mandalorian armor. He's taken off his jetpack. He's left like everything back in the room that he's staying in near Mos Eisley.
I could see him coming back to his room to get all his stuff, and he just hears Boss Nass snoring like super loud, like obviously somebody's in his room, and he just turns and walks away.
Well, all right, see you later. But I want him to be like walking through the streets of Tatooine. Boss Nass is trying to get information on Boba Fett at the same time that Boba Fett is trying to get information on the Skywalkers. So it's basically almost still like a cat and mouse game of figuring out information and tracking people down. And then it will all lead to a final fight in the desert of Tatooine, where Boss Nass will lose the battle, but he regains his confidence. And before he loses the battle, we see that the other Gungans followed him. They felt bad about what they said, and they realized that he was going to die if he went by himself. So as Boss Nass, because let's face it, Boss Nass would never beat Boba Fett in a fight, no matter how much rage or anger he had inside him. But we still have to give him a happy ending, because we've basically just shit on him the whole movie. So as he is passing away, sees the remaining Gungans charge Boba Fett, and he realizes that he has finally gotten revenge. He has showed Boba Fett that they won't bow to him, and he has finally completed his character arc of leading his Gungans to a victory against Boba Fett. So Boba Fett eventually leaves because he doesn't have any of his armor. He is much stronger than the Gungans, but there are more Gungans than there are of him. So he leaves. The Gungans crowd around Boss Nass. They give their apologies. They tell him what a great leader he was, and he makes them vow to retake the Gungan city, to which the lead Gungan that we've seen the entire movie that's like next under Boss Nass, the one who hurts him so bad in the alleyway on Naboo before Boss Nass comes to Mos Eisley, vows that he will get the Gungan city back and that Boss Nass's life won't be for nothing. And Boss Nass passes away, passes his kingdom, air quotes, onto this new Gungan, and that Gungan has now vowed to take back what is rightfully theirs, which leads into the next movie.
Well, I definitely did not intend on you killing off most of the Gungans and killing off Boss Nass. That's not what I anticipated, but I think you put together a pretty damn good story.
Yeah, I like coming up with those stories because just like off the top of my head, I'm just like, this and that. Yeah, sure, why not? This and that. So I was also not anticipating on killing off all the Gungans or Boss Nass, but when you think about it, makes the most sense. We get the Gungans mostly out of the picture. People don't like the Gungans after Jar Jar Binks, which also plays into the story a little bit.
Not true.
What?
I like them.
You're the
and there are like tens of thousands of them too. I mean, there's massive cities of Gungans. It's not like,
well, they're Gungan city. Let's say that the Gungan city on Naboo, where we see Boss Nass and Jar Jar Binks.
Otagunga.
Huh?
Otagunga. That's what it's called.
Yeah, that one. You must retake Otagunga.
Love it.
That's my movie. Finally, we get the matchup we've always wanted to see: Boss Nass versus Boba Fett.
Yes, the highly anticipated, much requested matchup.
Don't worry, hey fans, we listen, and you got it.
Yep, we know what you want.
And it's called Nass, a Star Wars story.
Nass. I love it.
I mean, I just wanted to take it. Everybody makes fun of Boss Nass, but I didn't want it to be just like a comedy about Boss Nass tripping over sticks and being like, where did that come from?
That's what I want.
No, it's the same kind of thing I pitched with the Austin Powers quick pitch that we had in our Austin Powers. Austin Powers is funny. He's a funny guy. But in canon, the dude's a super spy. Same as in canon, Boss Nass is the leader of a giant group of people. He's not just a like, ooh, whoopsie, I ripped my pants. Like, he is not that.
But you have to like sprinkle some of that into like super serious scenarios.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely like more of a like a Get Smart type chase than like a Jason Bourne type chase. Boss Nass is definitely the bumbling guy who somehow keeps stumbling back onto Boba Fett. And Boba Fett's like, how is this happening?
Yeah, yes, I like that.
But that's my Boss Nass movie. I talked a lot just then.
Well, that's good. That brings us into what do we want to do now? The mashup? Quick pitch?
Now is the mashup. So this is basically the same thing. I don't know how you ran it on your end, but I ran it on my end by just mixing and matching, more or less. So I have a few Marvel characters, a few Star Wars characters, few Marvel items, few Star Wars items, and then same for location. Few Star Wars, few Marvel. And I guess we can choose one from yours, one from mine, one from yours, and then we'll have to figure out that movie.
Oh, I didn't. I actually put together like I put together a plot synopsis.
Oh.
Yeah, like not focusing. I just went with a mashup. Like I made my own mashup.
Oh, well, go for it then. I'll just figure out my own mashup while you're pitching yours here on my paper.
Okay, good. Well, this is good. I'm going first because I was really proud as I was thinking about this, and then I got to the end and I was like, I could not have picked a more vanilla like Guardians Star Wars mashup. Like I feel like this is these are the easiest the puzzle pieces are going to fit together. And that is, of course, the Guardians of the Galaxy meet the Star Wars crew.
Yeah.
So I've got roughly post episode 7 and post like Guardians 1, but definitely before like Infinity War, and I would say before episode 8 as well. So what we're really working with is Rey, Poe, Chewie, and Han, because in my movie, Han is still alive, and Baby Groot, Rocket, Star-Lord, Gamora, and Drax. So those are the people. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I'm thinking something along the lines of like, the Guardians are they're after saving the world, but they're after money is like kind of the big thing too. You know, it's always been a motivator to them. So somehow along the lines, they're going to hear about some terrible terror. And just to sort of kick it over to the side a little bit, I'm thinking like Galactus is going to come into the picture as the big baddie. And ultimately, the Guardians are going to chase him across the galaxy for not only the bounty, but to save the world as well. The Star Wars peeps, they're sort of fresh off of blowing up Starkiller Base. But at the same time, they don't notice that the Empire seems like as downtrodden as they should, and that there seems to be like a new breath sort of coming through the Empire. Come to find out that Galactus and Snoke, or potentially Palpatine have teamed up over their shared love of devouring and blowing up planets. And while the Sith probably see Galactus as more of like a weapon, as an actual planet devourer, very similar to the many weapons they have developed up until that point, he really sort of just sees the Sith as a tool to an end. You know, like he's Galactus. He's just sort of, yes, I'll devour your planets if you give me planets to devour and a cool place to hang out for a while, type of thing. At some point, I want the Guardians to go through a wormhole, and I want either Drax or Star-Lord to actually say that they feel like they're in a place from a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away. Just feel like that needs to happen in the movie at some point.
I feel like it would definitely, like, Star-Lord would say it, and then Drax would be like, this isn't a time travel machine, Quill. This is a galaxy jumper.
Yeah, or something like that, yes. I love it. Something would need to happen where they meet each other, probably on a planet where, or doing something where they both think they can find helpful clues to track down this new duo. And, you know, as with any good, like, mashup movie, there needs to be a quick little spat where they don't get along with each other to begin with, realize they're both working to achieve the same goal. You know, the Guardians of the Galaxy will tell a story of the Avengers in New York and Thanos, and warn them that potentially a snap could be inbound that would actually affect them as well, unless the long, long time ago paradox is in effect. And then it would only have then Thanos is actually way in the future, and I hadn't thought that one all the way through yet. But then the Star Wars crew would teach the Guardians of the Galaxy about the Force and the Galactic Civil War and everything that's been going on there. Ultimately, as with always, it will take both of them working together, both of the crews working together, using their strong suits to really save the day and take down the most powerful planet-destroying team the galaxy has ever known. Doop, doop, doop.
What would the name of your movie be? Wars of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Star Wars.
Just put it together.
That's right. Episode 1.
Okay, so I am actually not going to go with anything on my paper because I have been waiting for a platform to talk about my Marvel versus Star Wars idea that I've had for a long time. So I'm going universe versus universe.
Okay.
So Thanos already has the gauntlet assembled. We know that. We've seen it. And we know that the Avengers stop him and everything like that. But they take the stones back. They like reimburse the stones, whatever, what have you. But we've seen that they already make alternate universes. Like there's bunches of different alternate universes because of what they did in Endgame. So I'm going to propose that while this movie takes place within the greater MCU, like let's say it technically could take place between this and like it could take place between Guardians of the Galaxy and Age of Ultron, whatever. It will actually be in an alternate universe to the modern MCU, almost as like a, hey, wouldn't it's like Marvel's What If, but we're going to make it into a live action movie.
Got it.
So in this, let's say that Thanos is defeated in Infinity War. They're able to do it. So they have no reason to try and return the stones to any place that they haven't already been. So they instead, Tony builds a basically like an impenetrable box, and he puts the gauntlet in there, and he's like, the Avengers will guard this with their lives. Nobody will ever get this again. So the movie starts with, we see the gauntlet like kind of shaking. And then all of a sudden, just like a blue wormhole opens up, and we see the Millennium Falcon fly through and directly out of the Avengers Tower. We see a few more ships chase out after it. We see Kylo Ren's ship and then a couple of TIE fighters chase out after it. And then the wormhole closes. So now the Star Wars characters have been breached by the Infinity Gauntlet into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We then, of course, because they are a threat, the person who was just using this gauntlet was using it to try and destroy the universe. Of course, whatever would happen with the gauntlet is a threat. All of the Marvel characters, all of the Avengers assemble, and they're like, we've got to take these guys down. They're out here just flying around. The Star Wars characters have never seen a world like this. They've seen worlds similar, but they've never seen one like this. So they freak out. They're fish out of water. And so eventually it ends with the Avengers and the Star Wars people fighting each other. They end up teaming up and having to take down Kylo Ren, who has realized basically before anybody else the kind of power that lives on this world because he can sense it. And he has assembled basically the worst villains that Marvel has to offer with Kylo Ren. So now the Star Wars people and the Avengers have to assemble to try and stop them. And there's a few scenes that I really want to see. One of them would be clone troopers are shooting at the group of Star Wars / Avengers characters getting onto the Millennium Falcon to fly away. Basically Iron Man, Captain America, whoever, all just take them down in an instant. And the Star Wars characters are like, whoa, well, that was awesome. They get on the ship and fly away. Then we see one more stormtrooper run in, and you hear him go, hey guys, I'm here. Ah, man, takes off his helmet. It's Stan Lee. It's the Stan Lee cameo. And he goes, I always miss all the good stuff. And then the only other scene I already see in my head, well, two more scenes I already see in my head. One is one scene would be Hulk running as fast as he possibly can at Kylo Ren, and Kylo Ren force stopping him. And you see Kylo Ren struggling with the Force, and you see the Hulk struggling to battle the Force. And then you just see the Hulk take one step, and Kylo Ren looks really nervous and scared, and you see the Hulk kind of smile at him. And the other scene is the end credit scene. Basically, the Star Wars people go back to their universe. Avengers keep going in this universe. And the very end scene, you see the gauntlet shake again, and you see Deadpool just poke his head out. And he goes, nah, this world looks PG-13, and then sticks his head back in, and that's the end of the movie.
I like it. Tony Stark has to be like constantly questioning the crew on like hyperdrive and like all the technology on Starship.
Oh yeah, can you imagine like an amalgamated like Millennium Falcon with Stark tech on it?
For real.
That would be awesome. See Captain America using like a blaster, like all kind. It would be seeing Chewbacca and Groot try and talk to each other.
And then we need, yes, Chewbacca and Groot trying to talk to each other would be great. And then we need one character in the MCU that will, for this point forward, have a lightsaber at their disposal and know how to use it. Maybe not the Force, but a remnant of the giant battle.
I feel like definitely Peter Parker and Ray would hit it off, and Ray would like gift him something that he is definitely not supposed to have, because that is the one character where like if he has any kind of tech, it's kind of like, oh God, Peter.
Well, sucks for you because Spidey's not in the MCU anymore.
Shut up. I don't want to talk about it. That's why I said let's don't have halftime this episode. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, sorry, I had to throw it out there. But you're right. Yeah, Spidey's definitely the one. Now this is where I'm going to embarrass myself because I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know for a fact that there are some katana wielding Marvel heroes, like more Asian inspired, that could easily replace their weapons with lightsabers.
Yeah, Deadpool.
Well, no, yeah, we know Deadpool. I'm not talking about Deadpool.
None that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm even trying to think of people that like fight with swords and
Or maybe
anybody.
whoever it is, if it's Rey that's coming in. But see, the problem is that Rey doesn't actually know anything about being a Jedi or what it takes to be a Jedi. But assuming we do have a Jedi, like a formally trained one, you could have a scene where they sit down with Scarlet Witch and like give her advice on how they control the Force and use the Force, and you could see her learning more and becoming more confident with her own powers, because that's always been her struggle, is like, how do I deal with this and how do I control this, much like the struggle that a lot of Force users go through. So you could get a little cross-pollination there.
Yeah, and I feel like Doctor Strange would definitely be like more questioning of stuff like magic comes from books. You wouldn't be able to learn magic by harnessing the Force, if that's even a real. And as he's talking, Scarlet Witch uses the Force to do something, and he's like,
yes,
and he just kind of like groans and like sits down, and he's like, all right, teach me.
That's what we need. Scarlet Witch and Black Widow need to be the only two that are Force sensitive. Be like, oh shit, look who's Force sensitive. Guess you're gonna be. Guess this is gonna be a thing now.
And Tony Stark would try and figure out what midichlorians are and inject them into him.
Yeah, exactly. Stark would definitely be the one trying to bring back the midichlorian train.
Yeah. And Star-Lord would be the one that would be super upset that he doesn't have any Force ability. And so he like is continuously just trying to yank stuff off of walls or bring stuff to him, and he can't do it. And the rest of the Guardians consistently make fun of him for that. And Drax is like,
we need like a mid-credit scene that shows like Captain America like in his own apartment with nobody else around, just like using the Force willy-nilly, but he just didn't want to show everybody that he knew how to do it.
And then as he's sitting down, he's like, I make a shield come back to me no matter where I throw it or how hard I throw it. Did they really think I didn't know how to use the Force? Ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
He's been using it the whole time.
He's been using it the whole time.
Newsflash.
I love it. I like it a lot.
Wow, this was a fun episode. Normally we just come in to like talk about movies, but we have created 4, just absolute blockbusters.
Heck yes. I want to know what your other choices were. Just tell me all 9 of your things.
Well, I didn't have 9 altogether, but one of the main ones the main one I had picked out that I really wanted to do was Happy Hogan finds a lightsaber in the Sanctum Sanctorum.
I was talking about the Star Wars only, but I'm glad you said that out.
Han Solo, Chewbacca, lightsaber, R2-D2. I counted 2 droids as 2 things. Indoor Star Killer base, and then Anakin's hut from episode 1. I don't remember where it was. I just wrote Anakin's hut.
I have Mace Windu, Shmi Skywalker, Anakin's mom, and Boss Nass, and then Jakku, Mos Eisley, and then Canto Bight, which is
the Casino Planet.
Yep. And then Boba Fett's jetpack, a Jedi or Sith holocron. I was leaving that up to how I felt at the moment. And then the J-Type 327 Nabooan Starship, my favorite cruiser out of the entire universe.
Good Lord. I'm glad I chose what I did for yours. You went like heavy. Mine was like, oh, he said he was kind of nervous coming in. I'll give him some pretty easy ones.
Yeah, but if you would have picked correctly, like if you would have gotten Shmi Skywalker on Jakku, then and say the Jedi holocron, then all of a sudden we've got Anakin's mom on the same planet we found Rey with a wealth of Jedi knowledge. If you would have picked like Boss Nass and actually
not killed all the Gungans.
Anyway, I had a few things in here that were prepared to line up with one another if you would have picked the correct ones, but that didn't happen.
Oh, well, I'm a fan of NAS, A Star Wars Story.
Oh, I think we're definitely going to get ripped off. Someone at Disney is going to hear this podcast because they listen to everything we do. They want to keep in the know, you know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So they're probably going to take our idea. We should just be prepared for that.
Yeah, if whenever we go in to see The Rise of Skywalker in December, if we see a preview before it that at the end of it's just a teaser for NAS, A Star Wars Story, we'll know exactly what happened.
Yes, 100%.
Well, this was a pretty fun episode. Did you have fun?
I had fun. I had a lot of fun.
Well, once again, thank you everybody for listening to 50 episodes of the Scruffy Movies podcast. That's insane. That's almost a year's worth of content. So thank you. Please like, comment, subscribe. What was your favorite movie that we pitched today? Let us know below. Please follow us on Instagram at Scruffy Movies.
And Crockalicious.
Just a little bit of housekeeping. Crocker and I are super busy over the next couple of months. So we are going to be kind of shooting episodes from the hip whenever we're able. Should still mostly be weekly. I think we should be fine doing that. But if 1 week maybe goes by and there's not a new episode, we'll be sure that the next week after that has a lot of great content for you guys to digest as cover for 2 weeks that we might have missed. But thank you for listening, and here's to the next 50.
Woo-hoo. Bye.
I was waiting. I was like, oh my God, he's changing it. Episode 50. He's just going to start doing whoop whoop.
I'm in a whoop whoop mood.